Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cities Skylines series, where today we're going to be focusing on making a kind of a replica of a little British village. It's going to be complete with a church, a pub, a post office, a primary school, all the important things. It's going to be based on quite an old village, so there's going to be a mixture of modern and old-fashioned houses kind of lining the area. It's way out in the sticks, so it's close to where the vineyard was that we did last episode. I really enjoyed making this. Actually, I based it on a real life village and did a lot of detailing work in the suburb area, especially with all the houses. I've not really done much detailing on individual houses yet, so that was quite a challenge. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, give it a thumbs down and leave a comment in the section below for any feedback. If you're enjoying the series, don't forget to subscribe, and I hope that you enjoy the video. So to begin with, I'm just going to be making the layout for the village. The idea is that it was kind of built around a junction of two important through roads or A roads. And the area just kind of developed around there, because it's a junction between two roads. A pub would have been put there, and then from that pub, a small community would have grown, and so on and so forth. And I'm actually basing this little village off a real world village. It's actually the one that me and my fiance are getting married in next year. It's the one she grew up in. So if you recognize the layout, then it might be a village you're familiar with, but that is quite unlikely. But you never know. So the first thing I really wanted to focus on was doing the church. The church has this lovely little duck pond outside it, so I thought I'd replicate that. And then I worked on actually putting the church itself in. So I found some really cool assets on the store. I'll link those all in the comments below. But I found this really nice looking English village church that is kind of exactly what the church in the real world village looks like, and it's what a lot of churches around that area look like. So I was really pleased with that asset, and I kind of surrounded it with another really cool asset that might have seen me use the last episode, which is these cobblestone walls, which you tend to get a lot of in the English countryside. So I just kind of enclosed it in that, and then I did a graveyard around the back. The graveyard was a bit uniform. If you were to look at it, you would say it's a very full graveyard by the end. But you'll see that in a second. I just added rows and rows of tombstones, and then because it was taking so long to place them all by hand, I ended up just using the prop line tool, drawing out lines of the props, and then with the basic tombstone, and then replacing some of the tombstones with the more decorative ones, just so that they didn't all look identical. And the way I kind of laid it out was the basic tombstones were the furthest from the church, and then the fancier tombstones were closer to the church, as the more wealthy and powerful families, they would have been closer to that side. So that was the thinking behind that design. So for a bit of extra detail, I just wanted to make the graveyard look a little bit overgrown. The idea being that this village was formed hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and a lot of the gravestones that are in the back and around the church won't really be visited anymore. All the relatives of those people will be long gone, and they'll just be remnants of the past. So church graveyards tend to be quite overgrown for that exact reason. So I kind of want to replicate that here. So I added in loads of bushes, loads of trees, just to give it a bit more of a wild feeling. And then from here, what you tend to find next to churches in England are church halls, or kind of like community halls and things like that. So I thought that'd be a really good accompaniment to the church. And you get a lot of these kind of small community areas in the little villages around England. Kind of a place for everyone to just go and have like meetings about things, and you can rent them out for like birthday parties, all kind of like event nights. We used to go to one near us for our football presentation. So again, I was just trying to replicate that. This bit isn't true to the village that I've based this on, but it doesn't really matter too much. So I just added in a little car park, some disabled parking. Always got to think about the less fortunate, and I was considering putting the electric charging ports in here, but I figured in a really tiny remote English village it wasn't very likely that they would have any electric charging points at this point in time, because it's still not quite there yet. Hopefully you'll get there soon. So yeah, just for this area, it's just trying to make it really basic for like a community area. So kind of big grassy area outside with like maybe a barbecue. Again, gonna make it quite overgrown. And I added in some football nets, I think. Just for the, when the kids are running around, because all the adults are inside drinking and talking and catching up. In the summertime, I have loads of memories of running around outside, playing hide and seek, playing football in these kind of areas, having barbecues with the parents kind of sat watching over us while we just got up to trouble. And there's always, it's England, so if you've never been, there are goalposts everywhere. You're never far away from being able to play football as long as you've got a ball. And the one thing I noticed about these kind of community places is I talked about the graveyard being overgrown, but these places were always properly just covered in wild grass and stinging nettles. And they could be absolutely nightmarish to come home from, just absolutely covered in thorns and all kinds of stings and bug bites. But that's kind of my own fault for being a stupid kid. So moving on, this bit is going to be me putting down all the houses and trying to create the suburbs. And what I wanted to do really for the first time I've ever really done it is, instead of just zoning random houses, I'm using move it and search everything to actually put down individual houses of specific makes and models, so that I can kind of get a really good aesthetic for the village and make it look exactly how I want it to. So you can see I'm using move it to add like corner houses, and I found these 4 really cool assets on the store that are just like UK village suburban houses. So they're going to make up the majority of my village, but some of the houses are going to have more of an old kind of vibe to them, so very classically British village kind of house, and those ones required a lot more tweaking and moving, so I went really high on the detail with all that stuff. So it did take it's the longest I've ever taken to just do a residential area, but it ended up looking really, really good. So as you can kind of see, what I'm doing here is I made individual plots for each house, and I kind of did a bit of a garden and then decorated the garden by hand. I ended up with a really, really good looking village kind of as a whole, something that looks actually quite believable. So I was really chuffed with how it all turned out. But it was a lot of work. It took me probably about 2 hours to get through all the detailing. And yeah, as I said, I'd never really done it before, so I was kind of going off what I'd seen by watching videos from people like Strict Toaster and Fluxtrans, and just kind of adding in some basic garden ornaments and some bushes and flower beds, just to kind of liven up the area a little bit. And one thing that I did start to run out of creativity towards the end. I didn't have actually that many assets that I could use in the gardens, so it did become a bit of a struggle towards the end, especially. The first couple were alright. I was just kind of feeling out what I could actually put in each garden. And I do have quite a lot of these big plots that I've put in. A little later in the time lapse you'll see that I've got quite a few terrace houses, and they were a lot easier because you can just duplicate those. But I was trying to make each house, you know, kind of have its own individual space and kind of be unique in some way, or so that it felt like it was an actual village, you know, where you walk down the street and every house is different, every garden is different, and they're all a reflection of the owners of the houses. And as you can see now, I'm just putting in the terrace houses. So these are the ones that are just the standard. They were all built at the same time. They were probably all sold at the same time. These people have been neighbours for years and years and years. And then I put in around the back what I would call a ginnel, because I'm from Yorkshire. Some people would call it a snicket, and most people in England would just call it an alleyway. But I put in what I refer to as a ginnel around the back of all the houses, so that people can kind of just walk around the back and get out that way rather than having to go out onto the main street. But these assets that I found on the store, they're called like the UK Village asset. They're all really, really good, and I would highly recommend them. I will put them as a link in the description below. You should definitely check them out if you're planning on doing any of this kind of work, because they look almost exactly how I wanted them to look. And there's a really good variety on there. I think there's probably 6 or 7 different houses, and they all look like they could be stuck onto the end of each other. Yeah, I can't recommend that asset enough. So that's what I used mainly for this area. And then because I'd gotten a bit fatigued by all the detailing, these ones I made just a little bit more uniform. So with their decorations, you can see they're not as intensive as the other ones that I'd put down. And then just added a little park around the back, where the ginnels were, to just add a bit of flavour to the village. Have a nice sitting area. The other sitting area that I have is the duck pond that's in front of the church. I didn't do too much detailing there. This area that I'm building now is kind of the centre of the village. So this is why I'm putting down all the older house assets, and I'm putting in a few shops around here as well. So the village doesn't have many amenities, but it's gonna have. I'll put in a pub briefly in a little bit, and yeah, I had a nice corner shop with like a post office and a post box outside, and another shop that I use as like a co-op, and it's where you wouldn't do your weekly shop there, but you know, you'd run out and grab some milk if you needed some, just for basic stuff like that if you're running low on beer, and you didn't fancy going to the pub. So just lots of really nice little village assets, and then the most important part of any village is obviously the pub. So I browsed the workshop. The asset pack that has all these cool little village houses does come with 2 pubs in them, but I found them a little bit underwhelming. I think I could have done something really cool with them, but I did manage to find an asset I preferred on the store, so I decided to go for that in the end, and then I added it in like a really cool beer garden, that we'll get to in a minute. I'm just filling in the duck pond at the minute, outside the church, and just making that look a bit nicer, somewhere for the locals to sit and feed the ducks, walk the dog around, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember the name of the actual pub asset. Again, I'll make sure I'll link it below. But the pub was another area that I really wanted to do some detailing on, because it'll be a big feature of the village. It'll be one of the only reasons that people from other villages would come to visit. You know, they'd come to the pub for like a nice restaurant meal. You know, they go to the church for church, but there wouldn't be many other reasons to come to the pub. So I kind of added this really nice big beer garden, as you can see now. Again, added some football posts. And then I put some decals to make the pitch look really worn, because that's what pub football post ollies are. And then you might have seen that I dropped down some beer garden tables with some parasols for the summer, because the making of a good pub is a good beer garden. And then for the last bit of the video, I just wanted to show some detailing I did on like an MOT garage. I did a lot more suburban house detailing in between, but I didn't think that didn't make for the best viewing, so I thought, well, I'll show you what I did with this garage instead. So this is just kind of somewhere you would go to have your car fixed up. It'd be a general area where people just take the vehicles. It'd be kind of like a mixture of a bike shop, a car garage, a tool kind of store. So it was just kind of be a bit of like the town hodgepodge warehouse kind of factory shop. So I thought it was really cool. Made it really muddy with loads of tire tracks and stuff, and some burnt out vehicles around the back. A little car park for the customers. But I just thought it's a kind of thing you might find in a small village. There's just one big store that kind of just sells a little bit of everything. It always kind of has something that you might need. And then around the back, it just has loads of like industry waste and stuff, and it doesn't look great, but it doesn't really matter, because it's there to do a job. And then the very final thing I added to the village, kind of on the hill looking over the entire thing, was the primary school. I found another really nice little village asset for a primary school, kind of fitted in with the rest of the aesthetic. Put it on a hill above everything else, overlooking the entire place, and just walled off the children so that they can't escape. Probably not the best terminology, but you get the idea. Again, England, football goalposts, very important, very big part of the culture. Loads of toys, slides and stuff, everything you would want, and then a little netball court, basketball court kind of thing. So yeah, that's my English village. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you stayed this long, I definitely hope that you enjoyed the video. And I really appreciate you staying. If you liked the video, like the video. If you didn't like the video, drop me a comment, leave me some feedback why. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.